what's happening in the court system? Are there cases still being heard? Like, or is there special protocol happening in the courts? Like, is the judge under like a plexiglass, protective? Are people wearing hazmat suits in court? Is court suspended? What's happening? I know you're in litigation, so are people now litigating with these N95 masks? And then they'll look like Bane when they're in court. But what's going on with the court system?
So the situation is as follows: is that the courthouses are generally speaking no longer open to the public.
Okay.
And basically, they remain open for court filings, which is important, and I'll kind of get to that. But generally speaking, the customary court functions have all been suspended indefinitely. And they've done that in the form of a couple of actual court orders that have been filed and that are available to people who may want to actually read about it. You can go to the Alberta Court's website. We have 3 levels of court in Alberta. And just always background, I'm a litigation partner in Alberta, so my practice is restricted to Alberta. But I know, based on communications, that comparable situations are basically in place right across Canada. So in Alberta, we have 3 levels of court. We have 2 courts of first instance, and then we have a court of appeal. The 2 courts of first instance are the Provincial Court of Alberta and the Court of Queen's Bench. Provincial court basically is for, in a very generic sense, matters that are, in terms of damages, are $50,000 or less. Anything above that, plus other special matters designated by statute, they have to be heard by the Court of Queen's Bench. And then if a matter gets appealed from the provincial court, it goes to the QB court, the Court of Queen's Bench. And if something gets appealed from the Court of Queen's Bench, it goes to the Court of Appeal. So we've got 3 levels of court in Alberta. All of them have suspended normal operations. And there are certain limited functions that they're serving. Certain criminal hearings, limited, not trials, are being heard. And then, of course, if there are what we call emergent applications, they're called injunctions, those are being heard, but only if they are truly urgent. And in fact, some lawyers are interpreting that as it has to be related to actually COVID. It's that narrow kind of scope to get in front of a judge. Aside from that, everything has been paused. If you have a trial, it's been adjourned sine die, which in Latin means without further notice. And so I had a trial booked for the end of April. That has been adjourned. And we don't know when it's going to be put back onto the trial list. I had another trial booked for the end of May. Unofficially, that's been adjourned. Officially, we'll hear shortly. And so everything is basically in a massive state of suspension.
So now that you're mentioning this, so say you have a person in a scenario where they've been charged with something, could they now just be in prison because the courts are suspended? Or because, I assume there are things like bail hearings or, whatnot. Like, so could people be, in prison for lengthier periods of time because of this? Or are the courts erring on the side of more leniency and giving people like temporary bail or letting them, whatever, on parole or whatever?
So there was a famous, a very well-known case called Jordan from the Supreme Court of Canada, which specifically dealt with length of criminal trials. And it mandated that steps had to take place within a certain period of time. And if not, it was considered basically an infringement upon the defendant's rights. How all of that is going to play out in the new COVID environment, I would be lying to you if I told you that I had the answer. No one knows the answer, to be honest. These things are actually being figured out in real time. What is the impact of the Jordan case in light of COVID and matters that are being upheld? It is possible other timelines and limitation periods that normally apply to legal actions have also been suspended. However, I'm not a criminal lawyer, so if anyone is in that situation, they should probably contact a criminal lawyer and get some specific advice. What I can tell you is that in the civil world, you have very specific timelines within which you have to do things once you're in a court action. Okay, and those are basically just referred to as rule-based or limitations or deadlines within the rules of court. Those have been indefinitely suspended by order of the court. So no one will be prejudiced in the interim during this COVID crisis. Similarly, there's another type of a deadline that's called a limitation period. That's the period of time within which you must commence a claim after you know that you have it. That too has been suspended in light of COVID. So by analogy, by extension, I would imagine that the Jordan timelines in the criminal context would also have some cessation, some suspension. However, I urge and I disclaim any of the listeners that if they do have, a kind of a personal connection to a criminal matter, that they would definitely need to take that up with criminal defense counsel.
Yeah, and I assume that everything else either is because of the suspension, they're giving extensions, right? So if people are applying for immigration and there's deadlines associated with that, if people are dealing with issues regarding PR card and citizenship, whatever, they're all probably going to be given, I would assume, automatic extensions if they have deadlines coming up.
Well, one would hope that is the case. The fact of the matter is, I return to my comment earlier, is that this is all happening in real time. So there are a lot of government agencies that may not have officially updated their policies and protocol. One would assume that because of the environment that we're in, that there would be reasonability and there would be basically an official kind of guideline that says everything is extended. I haven't seen any such universal bulletin, which kind of across the board extends by default as a result of COVID, any government mandated, any kind of committee or agency mandated deadline. But what I can say is with respect to legal action, both a limitation in order to commence an action as well as timelines within the body of a legal action have been indefinitely suspended by order of court.
Do I feel that the New York police are providing enough protection, or do I have to have protection of my own? I look for protection from Allah.